What we're going to do next is we're going to take a quick little tour through one of our mobile bottling lines. This is our line number 1. It's a 28-foot trailer. The line itself is about 5 years old. It was our first line. It'll do about 50 bottles a minute on the average, with both cork finish and screw cap finish, and it'll also do a Zork enclosure. We'll start here in the back and work our way in. The things we'll look at is the dump table. Then it'll go into the orbital, the sparger, then into the filler. From the filler into the corker or the screw capper, then the spinner, then the labeler, and then out on the pack-off table. Okay, I'm going to take you through a quick tour through the various pieces of equipment inside our bottling line. Basically, we have a deck out here that cases will be staged upon. And space is the biggest thing in mobile lines, because we don't have an awful lot of space, and there's an awful lot of things we have to accomplish. So that's one of the limitations when you're in the mobile world, which is why we've got an extra space on the back of our line, and we've got things that we pick up and can actually fold up. So this will fold down. This is a dump table. This is where people physically dump the glass onto. And then the conveyors will take it inside to the next station, which in this case, some lines will have orbitals. This particular line has a rinser and sparger, where we introduce nitrogen or argon into the bottles to take the ambient dissolved oxygen out of the glass. Normally it's about, I would say, parts per million, you're in the 8 to 9 range on ambient dissolved oxygen. That's what my findings are. And then once it goes through the rinser and we've injected it, we come out with 0 parts per million to avoid any dissolved oxygen pickup in the once it gets to the filler. You notice on our line we have safety glass all the way down, and this is bottling is one of those things. It's probably the winemaker's biggest nightmare, and one of the things they enjoy the least about the winemaking process. It's the last place that the wine's touched before it goes into the bottle. But safety, and to that fact, to the bottling crews, bottling is either extremely boring or you're tearing your hair out because there's so many things going on. And the one thing that we stress is safety. Everybody, it's very noisy inside a mobile bottling truck. Everybody wears safety glasses, earplugs. We encourage people to wear gloves. And we also encourage people, never put your hands into a moving part. You're dealing with, when you're sterilizing very hot water or steam, and when you're bottling, there's glass breaks, and if you put your hand where you can't see, or even where you put your hand where you can see, it doesn't take much to get a very severe cut or pinched in moving equipment. As you can see, the conveyors coming down, there's worm drives, we have star wheels, guides that are going to go into the rinser. Every bottle size, every shape has different parts. So we have a whole utility trailer filled with different size parts. I think we have 16 different sets of change parts for this line alone. And that's, your basic sizes are 375, 750 mil, and 1.5. There's 1 liter, there's 500 liter. We don't do any 187s. You need a custom dedicated line for anything that small. And then there's claret and burgundy and heavy burgundy, and there's just so many different sizes now, and tapered and straight-sided. So you really need a lot of change parts to be efficient in the bottling process. The bottles will come into the rinser, and it comes in, picks the bottle up, turns it upside down, gives it a few seconds to let any dust come out. These they physically lift up inside the bottle, and will have a pressurized nitrogen or argon go up inside the bottle to blow out any dust or anything that's inside, and to fill it with something that's heavier than air and doesn't introduce dissolved oxygen into the bottles. It comes out onto here. This next piece of equipment is a injector. It's also another area that we can inject. It actually has a vacuum and an injection. It's about a very quick process, but it can suck out and then blow additional nitrogen into a bottle, depending on how picky, or it does use more materials, nitrogen or argon. Sometimes we use this and sometimes we don't, depending on, it's a winemaker's preference. When it leaves the rinser, it is free of any oxygen in the bottle. It's just an added feature but it does use more nitrogen or oxygen, and if that's a big deal, then we can eliminate that step. This is the filler. It's a 16 spout filler. The black thing with the blue sides is it brings wine in, so it's an on-off valve. Brings wine in, it comes down through the bowl. It comes down to about here, and then disperses the wine, and then fills up. We like to keep the height about this distance, and that's determined how foamy, how much spritz is in the wine, I guess you would call it. Also on top we have nitrogen that's plumbed in, so we can float a nitrogen blanket on top of the wine. And then we have, again, this is our clean in place, this is our CIP system, getting ready for sterilization, and then when we're going to bottle, we'll pull these off. We have another centering guide that goes in here with star wheels. This is a centering guide. These are a set of star wheels that comes in and out. And then what we have here, this is the bottle physically is pushed down here. You can see the different levels here. When it gets to this point, it starts filling the bottle. And when it gets to this point, it's done filling the bottle. It comes down and it'll continue down the path. Fill height is controlled by these different varying washers in here. So different fill heights for different types of bottles. We accommodate that with different sizes of these washers in here. After it comes through the filler, it's going to go through either our single head corker or our screw capper. Let's start with the corker. We talked about sterilization earlier. Another thing that we want to make sure that it's clean, and we do it every morning, is we want to clean our corker jaws. So there's a tray in here that has corker jaws depending on what size corks we're using. And also there's a bottle centering device underneath depending on what size bottle we're using to center the bottle. It's a very delicate process. Right now I have this blocked off because, again, there would be a centering device and an in and out star, because the last job we did was a screw cap job. But it's very similar to what I just showed you on the filler. Those things need to be cleaned. We don't necessarily sterilize them, but we do sanitize them with alcohol. Very high octane alcohol. It's 170 proof that we cut with water, so that we make sure that the bugs they're dead and not happy. And then up above is the bowl that we put the corks in. We load them from the top, and then again it averages about 50 bottles a minute. This is a vacuum gauge, and when we're corking, again, we pull a negative. We call it vacuum. It's really an atmosphere. Some people just use this. Has a gauge on it with 0 and either a positive or a negative. We use this because it's easier. You don't bend needles. The needles are expensive. So we put it right on top, push it down, and it tells us, and we monitor that about every 15 minutes and keep records and let the winery know where our vacuum is. If somebody's not using cork, chances are they're going to be using a ROPP screw cap. This is a single head ROPP screw capper. Again, you can see it comes in, has a dedicated star wheel for positioning. Comes in, we load the screw caps on top. They come down the chute. There's nitrogen that's gas that's injected into the top of the bottle here. We also have a spout that's injected nitrogen into the caps themselves prior to going in and being capped. Or if a customer prefers, we do nitrogen drip. Screw cap, you're not pulling a vacuum. That's why we have to put nitrogen or argon on the head to evacuate any dissolved oxygen that might be in the head space. This is a foil spinner. This spins down foils, tin, aluminum. PVC is generally done with a heat tunnel. We do have the heat tunnel, but it's not in this particular line at this point. We'll have some people standing here. We'll put capsules on a bench over here, and they'll physically hand put the capsules on. This line, again, only does 50 bottles a minute, so it's easier. And we do a lot of different types. Automated foil applicators are best used for somebody that's using one or two types of material only and long runs, because it takes a long time to adjust the machine. So in our situation where we're doing a lot of different projects, it's easier to hand apply the capsules to the bottles. They come into the spinner. Again, there's another set of tools that would go here. We have it blocked off because we did screw caps. They come in and they'll come in position. They'll go up inside the head. It'll spin down and back up to put the foils on the bottles. The final process in bottling is applying the label. We have a machine. It's an imprestic vacuum machine. I would say it's 80% of the mobile lines use this type of machine because one, it has a very good footprint, fits into lines, and it's a very good, reliable labeler. So we can do a single web face and back on the same web, or we can do two webs with a face and back on separate webs. The bottles come in through here and through a drive. They go through. They're put onto a vacuum belt, and then the bottle follow, and the labels and are spun. This belt moves this way against a pad in the back, and the bottles rotate, and the label physically comes and then holds it, and it goes in, and they're shot. There's a control panel here that when turned on, we can make all the adjustments for spacing side to side between labels, and then the table can be raised and lowered for the height. As you can see, we have chain going all the way through the line. One of the things too that we have to do periodically, I would say about once a month, is we have to pull the chain completely out of the line, soak it in it's not a sterilization but a cleaning solution, and then we pressure wash it to get all the gunk and stuff off it. Bottling can be a very dirty process. You have sweet wines, red wines, you've got all kinds of cardboard and things coming down the line, and underneath it looks pretty awful. So a thorough cleaning of our line about once a month is typical, and this one is due for it here probably later today. The very last place that the product is touched is at the pack-off station. You're going to have to kind of imagine that down here there's a skate that rolls into a case sealer, and then down off the line where the product is physically case labels put on, a date stamp, and then it's palletized. Up here is a case return, so that from where the person is dumping the glass, he's moving the cases this way, so that people physically take the cases off, put them down. Generally they put in, there's two people that do it. The first person puts in 6 bottles, passes it down. Second person puts in 6 bottles, and then cold closes the flaps and puts it through the sealing machine. It's the last place for quality control. However, in bottling, quality control is done by every member of the bottling crew all the way through, looking for glass defects, low fills, high fills, mislabels, imperfections in labels, foils, all the way down the line. So it's these people have a pretty important job, because they're the last person that sees it before they put it into the case. So this person has a lot of responsibility, as does everybody on the bottling line.